After nearly 2 decades of paranormal research, we are constantly faced with a supernatural theme, a reoccurring ghostly chorus that cannot be ignored, and it's that the heart of many hauntings are deeply rooted in familial connections. It's our pursuit of this persistent trend that compels us to delve into the phenomena of those visited by their departed loved ones.
When the bracelet arrived, Chad wakes up in the middle of the night, scares the crap out of me. There was a shadow standing at the foot of the bed. It grabbed my ankle.
The very first night that we received that bracelet, I put it in my gentleman's cabinet. Something grabbed my foot and yanked it and just pointed to the sky like it's time to go that way.
I did a little bit of research into your family. I have something I'd like to show you.
In this episode of Family Spirits, a decorated Air Force hero who sacrificed himself during a pivotal military exercise reconnects with his grandson Chad via a stunning find made by complete strangers thousands of miles away. It's an astounding discovery Chad attributes to destiny, as he believes the spirit of his grandfather ultimately inspired him to pursue his dreams of taking to the skies himself.
This is Chad, take 1, A and B, come mark.
My name is Chad Wandell. I'm from Texas, and today we're here to talk about my grandfather, Howard H. Wandell. He was a flight instructor for the Voodoo F-101-B aircraft, which was one of the first supersonic fighters that we had, fighter interceptor bombers. And he was tasked with the mission to teach people how to fly this airplane supersonically with nuclear capabilities. And they were doing drills in the area. And the reason my grandfather was in the air that day was kind of a hush-hush thing. We didn't know the full details of it till recently, when a lot of the information was declassified. When they were doing maneuvers at supersonic speeds, his aircraft came apart in mid-flight. And in order to not put this aircraft into populated civilian areas, he chose to fly it over into the lake, and that's where he crashed. His choice that day to avoid civilian casualties and catastrophic casualties, considering the payload that this aircraft was carrying, truly does make him a hero. The way this all got started was a little interesting. So one day, out of the blue, I received a Facebook message, and it was from someone I had never met before. So my first instinct, because they were kind of asking some personal questions, was I'm getting fished here. Somebody's trying to steal my identity or something. And so I kind of pushed back and was like, why do you need to know? What are we talking about? And finally, they got to the point where they're like, we just need to prove that you're related to Howard H. Wandell, because the first message they said was, are you related to this guy? And I said, yeah, that's my uncle. And they immediately wrote back to me and said, no, it's definitely going to be older than your uncle. And I said, well, it's kind of convenient that my grandfather's name was also Howard Wandell. They asked if I could prove that. And so I sent them, you know, his burial plot information, just said, here's where he's buried, here's who he is. And they said, that's actually perfect, that's what we needed to know. We are amateur metal detectors, and me and my dad go out on the weekends to find things. And we were on the shore, and they said, at 18 inches down in the ground, we found something under there, and I think you're gonna be quite interested to see this. And they sent me a picture. And in that picture was my grandfather's airman's bracelet. And they asked me how this could have ever gotten to the shore of Lake Huron. And I said, that's an interesting story. You should see what I have to show you.
Chad's case is I don't even know what to say.
It's freaking
honestly.
epic.
Yeah, it's epic. I mean, a pilot's dream, literally. Talk about familial connections. It's got American heroes. It's got every element you would want in a great ghost story.
And it all started with like the strangest thing. A couple of people with metal detectors finding a bracelet.
So I sent them a message with a news article that showed how his airplane crashed into the lake about a mile offshore. And that's how my grandfather lost his life.
Just a random message on social media. Could have been anything, you know, easily ignored, but it didn't. It wasn't. He checked it out, and it just so happened to be thousands of miles away. Decades and decades and decades passed, and he got that bracelet. And with it came a whole bunch of activity that he wasn't ready for.
My name's Leslie. My husband is Chad Wandell. We've been married for 23 years, a little over 23 years. In 2020, I remember Chad coming to me saying, man, somebody's messing with me on Facebook. I got this message, somebody's asking about Howard. And I was like, your uncle? He says, well, they're asking about somebody older than Howard. They sent Chad a picture of the bracelet. I mean, who would have imagined that this would have been found? His grandfather's airman's bracelet find its way back to a family member, let alone Chad. It seemed like so many things were coming together. The universe was definitely trying to tell us something. When the bracelet arrived, Chad wakes up in the middle of the night, scares the crap out of me. There was a shadow standing at the foot of the bed. It grabbed my ankle.
The very first night that we received that bracelet, I put it in my gentleman's cabinet. Something grabbed my foot and yanked it. And I sat up out of my bed, looked around, and as I opened my eyes, I see a shadow of a man standing at the foot of my bed. He took his hand off the cabinet and just pointed to the sky like it's time to go that way.
He kind of stopped and he looked at me and said it had its hand on the dresser. And I was like, and I kind of stopped. I was like, that's where the bracelet is, isn't it? He says, yeah, it's in the drawer. That shadow had its hand on the drawer. When he told me that, I felt that it was his grandfather looking at him, probably wondering, who are you? Why am I here with you? You know, why do you have my bracelet? Who are you to have my bracelet?
And that next morning is when we discussed that it's time to go to flight school.
He saw it as a sign. He saw it as a sign, and a lot of people, I think, it gets you to think about like all the things that happen in your life that I'm gonna take this as a sign and I'm gonna get my life together. I'm gonna go after the things that I want. The difference with Chad is that he took it as a sign, he ran with it, and he never looked back.
It's a kind of an interesting turn of events that I got here to do this today by flying myself. His connection to us rekindled that fire, that passion to become a pilot, and I just said, it's no longer can wait for this. We're gonna go after it. We're gonna be a pilot. And that's when I immediately connected that this has to be my grandfather. What's the purpose of life if you don't go chase your dreams? And it was in that moment that I looked at my wife and I literally said, the universe is telling me I need to go be a pilot.
You hear the term haunted objects get thrown around a ridiculous amount in this field. It's more often than not just not true. I think this is a case where things may be a little bit different. I mean, nothing really happened with Chad until that bracelet found on the beach thousands of miles away got into his home, that it changed the course of his life.
Yeah, it's one of those truly remarkable stories. You don't hear these stories too often.
I remember that first lesson very distinctly, pulling up to the airport, seeing planes take off, and just kind of sitting there for a second before I got out of the car to go into the school thinking, oh my God, this is really gonna happen. I remember starting the engine of that airplane for the very first time. And when it roared to life, I just kind of took this deep breath like, this feels so natural. Like, I was born for this. And I got nervous. I got really nervous as we taxied up to the runway. And then as we're calling out to tower to get our clearance to take off, in my head, I just heard this voice go, relax, kid. It's in your blood. You got this. And just this wave of calm came over me.
Hi, Chad. I'm Craig.
Nice to meet you, Craig.
Nice to meet you. So you actually flew in today, or flew in for this interview?
I did.
So what kind of plane did you fly?
Well, we bought a Cessna 172 about a little over a year ago, and we've already kind of outgrown it. So I already got the permission to get a bigger airplane. So that's something that we're going to be doing here in the next few months, is shopping for a new airplane.
Well, it's great to have that kind of dream come true.
It is.
And I love the story of how you became a pilot, or what motivated you to become a pilot. And nothing like a family member from beyond kind of pushing you.
It was a much needed shove. Growing up as a kid, I was fascinated with airplanes. I had airplanes all over my bedroom as a kid. I always put together models I would talk to my dad, and he would tell me what little he could remember of his dad, because he was only 11 when his father died. So just that little bit of knowledge just fired this passion to me to always want to be there. But somehow I got it in my head that if you wear glasses, you can't be a pilot. So I just kind of put it on a back burner, and someone goes, "That's not true." And then it kind of re-sparked the whole desire to do this again. And then with what happened, it was, someone took a can of gasoline and threw it on the fire and said, "Oh, here we go."
Well, I did some research on your grandfather, but I did find some things that we could talk about, certainly.
I would love to see what you found.
Sure. Well, let me bring out your case file. This has been one of the fun cases that I've had the pleasure of looking into. And, I went a little bit further back in your family.
My heart's racing. This is exciting.
Your grandfather was Howard Henry Wandell, correct? He was born January 25th, 1926.
That's him.
In Eden, Ohio.
That's him.
And did you ever hear much about his parents?
No.
Or great-grandparents?
I do know, I don't know if it was his parents or his grandparents were the first of our family to immigrate to America.
Okay. His parents was Frederick George Wandell, 1886 to 1949. And his mother was Delphia Marie Durer, was her maiden name. She became Wandell. And Howard's father actually worked as a farmer. And now, if I'm not mistaken, your grandfather was the youngest of several children.
He was.
And he definitely did not want the farm life. That became very apparent. The 1930 U.S. Census that does list your great-grandfather and your grandfather as living here. I'm just going to hand that over to you. So I also just pulled for your records your great-grandfather's death certificate. He died in 1949, right around the time your grandfather became a pilot. I did find your grandfather's baptism record.
Really?
So I'm going to hand that over to you, too. That's one thing I noticed that his dad was really big on. As soon as those kids were born, they were baptized pretty quick. So I did find his.
I kind of hit home. My dad was the same way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So this is kind of maybe a family thing.
It stuck.
It's stuck. Family tradition. Get the kids baptized. Wow. He actually made the news quite a bit with his pilotry and his Air Force career. I mean, he was. I'm seeing where he just pops up here and there. Howard Wandell awarded Air Force Commission in 1949.
Yep.
I'm looking at 1955. Captain Howard Wandell, formerly of Hudson, always mentioned Hudson in every article that features him. He's now been assigned to the 15th Fighter Group at Niagara Falls Air Force Base. Now you...
No kid, oh my God.
Does that have some kind of significance?
Yeah, the very first major flight I took across the country, I stopped and landed at that base. Didn't even know.
Oh, really?
I went with a friend to pick up an airplane he purchased in Bangor, Maine. We flew commercially to Bangor, Maine, picked up the little airplane, and that's where we landed for the night when we left Bangor, Maine. And we stayed there overnight. I had no idea he ever even was there.
Well, he was. He was there for quite more than a year.
Wow.
It says, with the new assignment, the Steuben County man becomes a member of the Air Defense Command, the organization charged with responsibility for protecting the nation from enemy air attack. This was like one of the precursors to what we now have as NORAD, correct?
Correct.
And I found out that he actually did a stint in Korea. Did you know that?
He did. We had a medal, and I don't know what happened to it, but we had a medal from Korea when I was growing up. I remember the little bronze medal and the blue strap at the top, but I have no idea what had happened to that.
I pulled a lot of articles about the accident, and it was very dramatic, and it took several days for them to finally close it out. And I found it interesting. It was the local police that were sending divers into the bay. What was it, Saginaw Bay?
Saginaw Bay.
Looking for the plane crash. So the weather was bad, icy waters and storms delayed some of the searches. They had found a helmet floating in the bay, and they were looking for signs of a parachute, you know, to give them some kind of tip-off that maybe they had parachuted to safety, but no one saw the pilot's parachute. Your grandma must have just been on the edge of her seat, just devastated during this whole time. In fact, all of the family.
I can't even imagine.
Then they identified one of the remains as your grandfather. And then and his co-pilot, which was a man named Hilson Sewell. They did find pieces of steel, and they did find a parachute in the wreckage of the plane. They did determine that your grandfather died instantly on impact. And when the plane struck the water, it just sounded like it just exploded. I have all of this. I'll just turn this over. You can kind of go over all the files.
Thank you so much.
I found a document that was heartbreaking, at least for me, but this was his application for a headstone or marker.
I have that document.
And had to have been one of the most difficult signatures ever signed. I did find one thing that I wanted to share that you may not know. I did a quick research on the other pilot that flew with your grandfather on that last mission. But what I did find in 1954 at McCord Air Force Base, 2 Air Force flyers were injured late Thursday afternoon when the jet training plane they were bringing in for a landing crashed a mile short of the runway. The student pilot, Second Lieutenant Ray A. Olison, 22, of Tacoma, was injured critically. He actually died from the injuries. His instructor was Second Lieutenant Hilson Sewell, the person that died in the same plane with your grandfather. So I can't help but wonder what was going through his mind in those last seconds when this was happening again.
No kidding. No kidding.
So were you aware?
I was
that
not
he had-
aware of that, no.
So we wanted to give you a gift. And so I had to position my briefcase just a certain way. But this is from the show, and we hope you like it. That was custom made, and it represents the 445th Squadron, the last squadron that your grandfather flew with.
Thank you. Each and every one of you.
Chad's ghostly encounter with his grandfather wasn't an emotional reminder of his heroic legacy, but a reminder to fulfill his own passion of taking to the skies. The improbable discovery of his airman's bracelet seemed to open a direct line of communication from beyond the grave, proving that our dreams can call out to us, and if we're willing to listen, we can make them a reality.
So if anyone's lost a loved one, or even if you're having experiences like this, the one thing I can say is be open.